Hello people of the internet, it's Amanda, and for today's video, I'm here to talk to you about Johnny's West WTrouble online concert, which was held over last week, and I was able to catch the first show of the second day, which is a 3 p.m. Japan Standard Time one. And before anything else, I just want to thank my friend Adette for sharing the experience with me. So she's a Jasmine, which is what the West fandom is called, and for the past half year or so, ever since we met online, we're sort of like dragging each other into each other's fandoms. And it all started with, like just us talking about random things and me trying so much and successfully, dragging her into the whole Hirano show agenda. And on the flip side of that, so she's also sort of like introducing me into West and their discography and basically their performances and anything like that. So it's been that kind of like mutual exchange between the two of us for the past half year or so now. That I honestly, like I've talked about this in my other videos before. I've known Johnny's West not really more on like the music aspect prior to this year, if I'm being honest, but more on their like individual participation in like other projects, like for example with Shige, with acting and everything like that. So that's sort of like my relationship with the group, and the reason for that is because during the time that they debuted and everything, that was the time that I was on hiatus from just Johnny's in general. Like it was a time that I was a bit more distant with everything, J Entertainment. I still peek through, films and dramas, and that year with like Shige and Kami-chan and their other, acting projects, more so than, them as a group. So that's really that. And like after that, obviously, like when I came back 2018, it was straight up, with King and Prince. And I've talked about this before as well, that I'm the type of person who usually has like a very narrow field of vision when it comes to the groups that I stan, just because I get so emotionally and physically and mentally taxed by just having so many groups to stan. So after that, it was sort of like just that gap. And because West is in between that gap of when I was so involved with like the whole Johnny's thing back then with Katu, Narashi, and all of those things, and then my break, and then suddenly going back to King and Prince. So I've never really paid much attention to them before, and it was only because, with my interactions with Adette, that this entire thing happened, as well as when I saw some of their performances from Be Happy Live over the span of like the peak of the pandemic. So that's basically that. So prior to WTrouble, I was initiated into their other like concerts and their other performances, and I was pretty impressed with what I've seen. So I wouldn't tap into other things, other issues whatsoever. Just gonna focus more on them as a music group for the intents and purposes of this video. So I'll be mostly talking about that in a more technical and performance-wise aspect. And yeah, now the thing with this is that, okay, so prior to WTrouble, I've been seeing like the promos and everything, talking to Adette about it, what to expect and anything like that. And given that I've seen like their past performances, and just basing, trying to set expectations based from that, the thing that I've experienced with West is that most of their performances tire me out in a good way. There's just so much energy, so much in it that really, you sort of like are in for a ride, which is like I feel like is the best way to sort of like sum it up. And I think, like, I remember there's this one Saturday where I decided to watch one of their concerts on a morning, and that entire day I was just so tired because of how much like I laughed and then they cried at, the skit, and then their performances, and then everything else that came in between. So I was expecting that kind of level of like exhaustion as well prior to like watching WTrouble. As soon as the concert started, it was pretty interesting because in West fashion, in every Johnny's group in general, they have like their own thing. And for West, it's really having that kind of like storytelling that comes along with their concepts, and it's the same thing with this one as well. And for some reason, I think because of that, it still gives the entire thing a sense of like comforting cohesion, that even if in past West concerts it's very festivally, it's very fun and vivid and anything like that, and then for this one there's some sort of like a transition in terms of the vibe where it's a bit edgier. There's a street style vibe to it at the beginning of the concert, with WTrouble being sort of like the headlining song for, or the one that's setting the tone for the entire thing. It still fit because they had a preamble to it, like this sort of like story that they're trying to sell. I absolutely like that. It's not the type that you would just jump right into something and it would feel like, this is really, really different from the one that I've seen before. Like, it sounds so foreign. It wasn't like that at all, because they're sort of like prepared into having this narrative in mind as to what the concert is going to be about. And then after that, so I like how in between, like the what do you call this? Like, the concert is sort of like divided into parts. The first part of the concert, there's this sense of like edginess again, in terms not just of the song choices, but at the same time with the set and everything. Like, there's this sense of just very mature, very, very dynamic kind of vibe to it. That's not really your usual, sort of like fun kind of songs, but these are the songs that you can like headbang to. In the middle of that, there's this distinct West vibe. Like, they brought that back very seamlessly, I would say, and it had more of the songs that had a more like fun, very festivally kind of vibe to it. That it never. It's definitely, this, like, they have like the energy up there, but it's not the type that would tire you out. It's a type of energy that is very exciting, and there's a sense of like adrenaline to the first part of the concert, and then the second part of it is sort of like cooling you down a bit into more of like just very fun, very fresh types of sounds. And then after that is really more of like the fan-centric types of songs. I feel like my favorite part was when it's around Hey, where they started going around the audience. And I mean, I've noticed it in the first part of the concert where the entire audience, they have like uchiwas from fans, which I was thinking that, are they going to interact with it later on into the concert? So I was really happy that around Hey, they did so, and they were, it was really more of like, even if the audience wasn't there, I like that touch, because it gives this sense of just connecting with the audience, even if they're not particularly there. And just the effort, obviously, not just for West, but also for the staff who did that, to fill in every single seat in the arena with the uchiwas that were sent in with the fans. I feel like that was a very, very nice touch. According to Adette, apparently they did that for Dream Island and it worked, so that's why they did that for WTrouble as well. And I don't know, I just absolutely appreciated that. I feel like every single group, given the setup that is very unique this time around, they had their own ways in sort of like still connecting to their audience, even if the audience are not particularly there. And for this one, there's just something very heartwarming about the idea of, individual uchiwas there and interacting with these uchiwas. And obviously that experience is going to be very different for every single show. So I don't know, I just appreciated that part a lot. I think one part that was was and still is mind-boggling for me is the one in when they were performing Kimi Dake no Boku Dake no, and there was a transition where they're performing in this sort of like installations in black suits, and apparently like it shifted, and then they came out with wearing white suits, and I was just, how they did, I mean, I was really confused when I saw that. Like I initially thought, like, are the juniors who were back dancing for them the ones who came out trying to sing along with the songs, but then I saw that it was actually them. So that moment for me was and is still very confusing. From what I gathered from that, apparently even the Jasmines are confused by that. But I don't know, like I really hope that they talk about it, because obviously like this is a live concert, if you will, and I'm not sure how they pulled that off or anything like that, but I don't know, I absolutely love how they included that. I feel like that was genius in a way, very, very surprising, and definitely one of the highlights of the show for me as well. But given that, you know, I like the entire transition that went into it. So again, it goes full circle from being, you know, this having a cool vibe and then a fun vibe and something just for the fans that's very, you know, interactive in a way, even if there are no audiences there. And at the same time, like there's also and it goes full circle into this very like nice, cool kind of vibe that really ties everything together. So I don't know, I just really, really like that idea about this concert. Another thing that I noticed about this is the amount of juniors that they have for this particular concert is very minimum as compared to like the other concerts that I've seen in the past. And I feel like it's because for this one, they maximized their performances more for themselves, that didn't require a lot of like, I don't know, like transitions that would need some juniors to like fill in the gaps. I think the longest one would probably be the junior performance break in 3/4 of the concert. But other than that, like, there wasn't really a lot of like, I don't know, of like gaps that juniors had to fill in between the performances. So I don't know, but I feel like, you know, I also like that about this particular concert. I like that there are performances where live music were performed alongside them singing it. I don't know, I'm just a sucker for live music. That's basically the main explanation as to why I like that part as well. And generally, I like how, and this applies not just for West, but basically for most of Johnny's or just J-pop in general, is what I like about performances like these is that it's not really about, you know, having the most stable vocals all the time. It's about, you know, because sometimes like even the best performers, and I usually say this, is that when you're performing and you're up there and you're giving every single cell of your body into a performance, it's not usually just vocals wise, you know, that, you know, your vocals are definitely going to be affected. And even so, like here, obviously there are lapses here and there when they're performing, when they're singing, but because of just the energy that are being suited into each performance, it's not something to criticize, if you get what I mean. So definitely applies to West and for most of the groups that have held their concerts for this year. So overall, what do I say? WTrouble, absolutely loved it. Like and this is again going through a perspective of someone who newly introduced to them. Like, I mean, again, as I mentioned, I've known them before, but never really paid as much attention to them prior to meeting Adette, actually. So, like, being initiated into listening to their music is really, really something that that is fascinating for me for this year. I was glad that I was able to experience this one because obviously I liked how their performance turned out to be. Like, I appreciated it as someone who is very into both, you know, just music and aesthetics in general. I feel like they did a really good job in terms of just combining it. I feel like I've gotten way too technical for most of this video, but here comes the messy part. Before I end this entire thing, I just want to say, Ryusei, I love you so much. I feel like I love you even more after watching WTrouble. So there's that. Now with that said, tell me down in the comments below, are you a West fan? Did you get interested in them after, you know, seeing some of their performances, especially during the Happy Live thing around earlier this year? Are there any West songs that you're interested in or that is your favorite? So let's talk about that in the comments below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you're new to my channel and you would want to hear more from me, please hit subscribe. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you again soon in a new one.